On my 67th birthday, my daughter Lily placed a sleek tablet in my hands, kissed my cheek, and whispered, "This will change your life, Mom." I believed her. I thought it was love, her way of making up for all the years we'd grown distant. But 11 days later, I stood frozen in my own living room as 2 police officers led her out in handcuffs, while my birthday roses were still sitting on the counter slowly dying. If you've ever trusted someone with your whole heart, only to question everything later, I'd really like to hear from you. Tell me where you're watching from and what you would have done in my place. And if stories like this stay with you, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps me know I'm not telling this alone. After my husband Daniel passed away 3 years ago, the house didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a place that remembered him too well. Every room carried something of him, the indentation on his side of the mattress, the chipped mug he refused to throw away, the faint scent of his aftershave that seemed to linger in the hallway long after it should have disappeared. For a long time, I kept everything exactly the same, as if moving a single object might erase him completely. I settled into routines instead, quiet ones. Morning coffee by the window at exactly 7:15. A slow walk around the block, even in colder months, just to remind myself the world was still moving. Afternoons spent reading or volunteering twice a week at the local library where I used to work before retiring. Evenings were the hardest. That was when the silence grew louder. I told myself I was managing, that this was what moving forward looked like at my age. But loneliness has a way of settling into the spaces you pretend are already full. My daughter Lily knew that, or at least I thought she did. Lily had always been complicated, brilliant, driven, independent to a fault. As a child, she needed less comfort than most, or maybe she just learned early not to ask for it. When Daniel got sick, everything in our household revolved around hospital visits, medications, long nights, and uncertainty. I did my best to be present for both my children, but looking back, I know Lily carried more alone than I ever realized. After Daniel passed, Lily kept her distance. Not cruelly, just efficiently. Phone calls instead of visits. Text messages instead of conversations. She built a life that seemed polished and successful from the outside, and I didn't want to intrude. So when she started showing up more often a few months before my birthday, I didn't question it. I welcomed it. At first, it was small things. She'd stop by with groceries I hadn't asked for. She insisted on fixing a loose cabinet door in my kitchen. She even sat with me one afternoon going through old photo albums, something she hadn't done in years. I remember thinking, this is what it feels like to have my daughter back. Mom, you shouldn't be doing everything yourself. She told me once, standing in my kitchen with her sleeves rolled up, washing dishes, I would have been perfectly capable of washing. You've taken care of everyone your whole life. Let me do something for you. It sounded so sincere, so overdue. When she told me she wanted to plan my birthday dinner, I felt something soften inside me that I hadn't felt in a long time. We kept it simple. Just the 3 of us, Lily, her boyfriend Derek, and me. Ryan couldn't make it from Chicago because of work, but he called that morning and promised to visit soon. I told him not to worry. I meant it at the time. The evening was almost perfect. Lily cooked. Not ordered, not catered, cooked. That alone felt like a gesture I didn't quite know how to receive. She set the table with my nicer dishes, lit candles, even brought flowers. Yellow roses, my favorite. Derek arrived with a bottle of wine and a smile that felt just a little too practiced, though I couldn't have said why. He hugged me, called me Mrs. Crawford at first, then corrected himself when Lily insisted he use my first name. He was polite, attentive, quick with compliments. "You've raised an incredible daughter," he said, glancing at Lily in a way that seemed almost rehearsed. I smiled because that's what you do when someone praises your child, even when a small part of you wonders if they're saying it for you or for her. Dinner went smoothly. We talked about small things: Lily's work, Derek's business opportunities, the neighborhood, the weather. Nothing heavy, nothing uncomfortable. It felt carefully balanced. After we cleared the plates, Lily disappeared into the hallway and came back holding a slim white box. "For you?" she said, her eyes brighter than I'd seen in years. I laughed softly. "Lily, you didn't have to." "I wanted to," she interrupted gently. "Open it." Inside was a tablet. New, sleek, more advanced than anything I'd ever owned. "Oh, Lily." I ran my fingers lightly over the screen, almost afraid to touch it. This must have cost a fortune. "It's not about the cost," she said quickly. "It's about making your life easier." Derek leaned forward slightly, watching me more closely than I expected. Lily sat beside me and turned the device on. "I've already set everything up for you," she said. "Your email, your photos, even video calling so you can talk to Ryan whenever you want." She tapped through the screen with practiced ease. "See this? That's your bank app. You won't have to go in person anymore. You can check everything from here. And this one, groceries. You can order whatever you need and have it delivered right to your door." I nodded, impressed but also a little overwhelmed. "And don't worry about passwords," she added quickly. "I saved everything so you don't have to remember anything complicated." That should have been my first moment of hesitation. But it wasn't, because I was too busy feeling grateful. Too busy thinking, she cares. "Lily, this is more than I expected," I said softly. She reached over and squeezed my hand. "You deserve it, Mom." Derek smiled again, but this time his eyes flicked briefly toward the screen, not at me. It was a small thing, so small I almost missed it. But something about the way he watched the device, not admiring it, not curious, but attentive, lingered in the back of my mind longer than it should have. "Let me show you one more thing," Lily said, her tone light. She opened another app. "This is for security alerts," she explained. "Sometimes banks send notifications to confirm it's really you making a transaction. If you ever see one, just tap approve if it looks normal. It's nothing to worry about. It just keeps everything safe." I nodded again, trusting her completely. Why wouldn't I? She was my daughter. That night after they left, I sat alone at the kitchen table with the tablet glowing softly in front of me. The house felt different somehow, not as heavy, not as quiet. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel left behind. I felt connected. I picked up the tablet and opened the photo app Lily had shown me. There were pictures already organized, old family photos I hadn't realized she still had. Me holding Lily as a baby. Ryan's first day of school. Daniel standing in our backyard laughing at something I could no longer remember. My eyes filled with tears, but they weren't the same kind I had grown used to. These felt warmer. Maybe I thought this was what moving forward looked like after all. Maybe this was Lily's way of coming back to me. I closed the tablet gently and looked at the yellow roses on the counter. They were fresh then, bright, alive. I had no idea how quickly that feeling would fade, and I certainly had no idea that the very thing sitting quietly on my table would soon become the reason I would question everything I thought I knew about my own daughter. For the first few days, the tablet felt like a gift I didn't know I had been missing. It sat on my kitchen table where the morning light could reach it, and I found myself reaching for it more often than I expected. At first, I used it the way Lily had shown me, carefully, almost cautiously, as if I might break something if I tapped too hard or swiped too quickly, but little by little it became natural. I called Ryan on video for the first time 2 days after my birthday. Seeing his face fill the screen, clear, immediate, not separated by distance or time, caught me off guard in a way I hadn't prepared for. "Mom," he said, blinking in surprise. "Wow, you look different." I laughed. "Different how happier," he said simply. I didn't know what to say to that, so I smiled instead. We talked longer than we had in months. About his job, his apartment, the weather in Chicago, the little ordinary things that used to feel too small for a phone call, but suddenly felt important again. After we hung up, I sat there for a moment holding the tablet in my lap. Lily was right, I thought. This really is changing things. Over the next few days, I explored more. I browsed old photos that Lily had already organized for me, pictures I hadn't seen in years. Some of them must have come from her own collection, which touched me more than I expected. It meant she had kept them, that she had cared enough to save pieces of our life together. I ordered groceries through the app she had installed. It felt strange not walking through the aisles myself, but when the delivery arrived exactly when it was supposed to, I had to admit it was convenient. Even the bank app, something I had always been hesitant about, seemed simple enough. I could check my balance without driving across town. I could see recent transactions in neat, tidy lines. It all felt controlled, predictable, safe. But by the 4th day, something small began to feel off. It wasn't anything dramatic, nothing I could point to and say, "There, that's the problem." It was just little things. The first time I opened my email and noticed that one of the messages at the top had already been marked as read. I paused, trying to remember if I had opened it earlier and simply forgotten. At my age, you start to question your memory before you question anything else. So I let it go. The second time I noticed that one of the apps Lily had placed on the home screen had moved slightly shifted into a different position than I remembered. I stared at it for a few seconds, trying to convince myself I must have rearranged it by accident. Again, I told myself it was nothing. But then came the notifications. On the 5th day, while I was in the middle of making lunch, the tablet lit up with a message from my bank. "Verify your identity for a recent request." I wiped my hands on a towel and picked it up, my heart giving a small, unexpected thump. A request, I tapped the notification, and the app opened to a screen asking me to confirm a transaction attempt. It didn't say much, just that a request had been initiated and needed approval. I frowned. I hadn't initiated anything. For a moment, I just stood there in my kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence, the tablet glowing faintly in my hands. Then I remembered what Lily had said. Sometimes banks send notifications. Just approve it if it looks normal. But this didn't feel normal. I didn't recognize the request. Instead of pressing anything, I backed out of the screen and set the tablet down. A few minutes later, my phone rang. It was Lily. "Hey, Mom," she said, her voice bright, almost too quick. "Quick question, did you get a notification from your bank just now?" My fingers tightened slightly around the phone. "Yes," I said slowly. "I did." "Oh, good," she replied immediately. "That's probably just the system syncing. Sometimes it does that when everything's new." "Did you approve it?" "No," I said. There was a pause. Not long, but long enough for me to notice. "Well," she said, her tone shifting just a fraction, "you can go ahead and approve it. It's nothing serious. It just confirms everything is working properly." I glanced at the tablet on the counter. "I'm not sure I'm comfortable doing that," I admitted. Another pause. This one shorter. "Mom," she said gently. "It's really okay. I set everything up for you. Remember, I wouldn't let anything happen to your accounts. I wanted to believe that. I did believe that. But something in my chest felt tight. I think I'll wait," I said. "Maybe call the bank first." Her response came quicker this time. "You don't need to do that," she said almost too quickly. "They'll just confuse you with technical stuff. It's honestly simpler if you just approve it." I didn't answer right away, and for the first time since she had given me the tablet, I felt something unfamiliar settle between us. Not distance, not exactly, more like resistance. "I'll think about it," I said finally. There was another small silence, then she let out a light laugh. "Okay," she said. "Just don't stress yourself out over it, all right? It's really nothing." We ended the call shortly after, but the conversation stayed with me. I stood in my kitchen again, staring at the tablet. This time it didn't feel like a gift. It felt like a question. I walked over, picked it up, and opened the bank app again. The request was still there waiting. Patient. Unmoving. I hesitated, my finger hovering just above the screen. Then I closed the app without touching anything. That night I found myself checking the tablet more often than usual. Not out of curiosity, but out of something closer to unease. That was when I noticed something else. In the list of recent activity, there were entries I didn't recognize. Small ones. Harmless looking, but unfamiliar. I leaned closer, adjusting my glasses, reading each line carefully. A login from a device I didn't remember using. A timestamp that didn't match any time I had been on the tablet. My stomach tightened. I told myself there had to be an explanation. There always is, I thought. There has to be. But for the first time, that explanation didn't come easily. And somewhere beneath all the logic and reassurance I kept trying to build for myself, a quiet thought began to take shape. What if this isn't a mistake? I set the tablet down and turned off the kitchen light, leaving the room in darkness, except for the faint glow of the screen. It stayed there silent and still. But I could no longer shake the feeling that someone was reaching through it. Watching. Waiting. And I didn't yet know just how close that someone really was. The next morning, I woke up with that same uneasy feeling still sitting in my chest, like something unfinished I couldn't quite name. I tried to ignore it. That's what we do, isn't it? Especially at my age. We tell ourselves not to overreact, not to assume the worst. We've lived long enough to know that panic rarely solves anything. So I made my coffee at 7:15, just like always. I opened the curtains. I sat at the kitchen table. And then I turned on the tablet. For a moment, everything looked normal. The same home screen Lily had arranged for me. The same neat little icons. The same quiet hum of a machine that was supposed to make my life easier. But before I could even open anything, a notification appeared. Urgent suspicious activity detected. Please review immediately. This time, it wasn't subtle. My heart began to pound in a way that felt different from yesterday. Less uncertain, more direct. I tapped the notification with a trembling finger. The bank app opened instantly. And there it was. An attempted wire transfer. Not a small one this time. A large amount, large enough that I had to blink twice to make sure I was reading it correctly. The kind of amount that doesn't get moved by accident. The kind of amount that doesn't come from clicking the wrong button. I felt the room tilt slightly. No, I thought. No, this can't be right. My first instinct without even thinking was to call Lily. Not the bank, not the police, my daughter. Because when something feels wrong, you reach for the person you trust most. That's what I did. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, Mom," she said, her voice already alert. "What's going on?" I swallowed. "I just got another alert," I said. "From the bank. It says there was an attempted transfer." There was a brief pause. Then, just like yesterday, her response came quickly, too quickly. "Oh, okay, don't panic," she said. "That's probably just the system adjusting after we set everything up. It happens sometimes." I stared at the numbers on the screen. "This doesn't feel like sometimes, Lily," I said quietly. "It's a lot of money." "I know, but that's exactly why the system flags it," she replied smoothly. "It's doing its job. Nothing actually went through, right?" I hesitated. "No," I admitted. "It says it was blocked." "Exactly," she said, her tone brightening as if she had just proven her point. "See, everything's working the way it's supposed to." Something about the way she said that didn't sit right. It wasn't relief I heard in her voice. It was control. "Did you approve anything yesterday?" she asked suddenly. "No," I said. "I told you I wasn't comfortable." Another pause. This one sharper. "Well," she said, her voice tightening just a little, "sometimes if you don't approve those requests, the system tries again automatically. It's just trying to sync everything properly." I looked back down at the screen. "Lily," I said slowly, "I didn't request this." "I know you didn't," she said quickly. "That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying the system can be confusing if you're not used to it." There it was again. That subtle shift. Not concern. Correction. As if the problem wasn't what was happening, but how I was understanding it. I felt something inside me pull back just slightly. "I think I'm going to go to the bank," I said. The silence on the other end of the line was immediate. Then, "You don't need to do that," Lily said a little too firmly. "They'll just freeze everything and make it harder for you to access your own money." "I'd rather be safe," I replied. "Mom," she said, her voice softening again, almost pleading. "Now you're overthinking this. I set everything up for you. I wouldn't let anything happen." I closed my eyes for a moment. That sentence again. I wouldn't let anything happen. It was meant to comfort me, but for some reason it didn't. I know I said quietly, "But I just want to double check." There was a long pause this time, long enough that I almost pulled the phone away to see if the call had dropped. Then she sighed. "Okay," she said finally. "If it makes you feel better, just don't let them scare you, all right? Banks love to make things sound worse than they are." We hung up shortly after that, but I didn't move right away. I stayed sitting at the table, the tablet still in front of me, the alert still glowing on the screen. For the first time, I didn't feel reassured after talking to Lily. I felt unsettled, as if I had just asked a question and been guided away from the answer. I got dressed more slowly than usual. I checked my purse twice before leaving the house. And when I stepped outside, the air felt colder than it had the day before, even though the weather hadn't changed. The drive to the bank took less than 10 minutes. I had been there countless times before. It was familiar, safe, predictable. But that morning, as I walked through the glass doors, I felt like I was stepping into something I didn't fully understand. Monica Hayes, the branch manager, recognized me immediately. "Janice," she said warmly, standing up from her desk. "Good to see you. What can I help you with today?" Her tone was calm, grounded. It steadied me more than I expected. "I received some alerts," I said, holding out the tablet, "about attempted transfers, and I don't recognize them." Her expression shifted, subtle but noticeable. "Let's take a look," she said. We sat down together and I handed her the device. She moved through the screens with practiced ease, her brow furrowing slightly as she read. "How many of these have you received?" she asked. "This is the second one," I said. "There was another yesterday, and you didn't approve either of them, no." She nodded slowly. "That was the right decision," she said. Something in my chest tightened. Why, I asked. She turned the tablet slightly so I could see what she was looking at. "These requests," she explained carefully, "are coming from a device that has already been authorized on your account." I frowned. "I don't understand." She met my eyes. "It means whoever initiated these requests didn't need to hack into your account from the outside," she said. "They're using a device that your bank already recognizes as trusted." The room went very quiet. I felt my hands grow cold. This tablet, I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't answer right away, but she didn't need to. "Yes," she said gently. "Or another device linked to it." I stared at the screen, at the neat rows of transactions, at the system that had been quietly watching, even when I hadn't been. "I live alone," I said slowly. Monica nodded. "I understand," she said, "but sometimes access is given without realizing what that means." I thought of Lily, of her sitting beside me at the table, setting everything up, saving passwords, telling me not to worry. A strange hollow feeling opened up inside my chest. "No," I thought. "No, that's not possible." "She was just helping me," I said more to myself than to Monica. "I'm sure she was," Monica replied carefully. "But right now our priority is protecting you. Protecting me." "From what? From who?" Monica continued, her tone steady and professional. "I recommend we temporarily freeze certain functions on your account," she said, "just until we understand exactly what's happening. We can also monitor any further activity." I nodded automatically, even though my mind was still trying to catch up. "Okay," I said, but as she began the process, one thought kept repeating itself in my head. If the access came from a trusted device, then this wasn't random. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a mistake. It was someone who had been invited in. And suddenly, for the first time, I found myself asking a question I never thought I would have to ask. Who exactly had I trusted? I left the bank with my accounts partially frozen and a quiet weight pressing down on my chest that no amount of fresh air could lift. The drive home felt longer than it should have. Every red light seemed to last just a little too long. Every passing car felt louder, closer. It was as if the world had shifted slightly off balance, and I was the only one who noticed. Monica's words echoed in my mind. A trusted device, not a stranger, not an accident, someone who had been allowed in, by me. When I pulled into my driveway, the house looked exactly the same as it always did, neatly trimmed hedges, clean windows, the same yellow roses still sitting just inside on the kitchen counter. But something about it felt different, like it wasn't entirely mine anymore. I stepped inside slowly, setting my purse down with more care than usual. The tablet was still on the table where I had left it that morning, its dark screen reflecting the faint outline of the room. For a moment, I just stood there looking at it. Then I walked over and picked it up. This time, I didn't open the bank app right away. Instead, I went into the settings. I wasn't particularly tech-savvy, but I knew enough to recognize what looked familiar and what didn't. Saved passwords, autofill information, linked accounts. I tapped through each section carefully, my fingers slower now, more deliberate. There were entries I didn't remember creating. Login credentials saved under my name, but not typed by me. email accounts that had been synced without my recollection, and then something that made my breath catch. A list of devices connected to the tablet. There was mine, and another, unfamiliar, no name I recognized, just a string of letters and numbers. My hands began to tremble. I stared at the screen, my mind racing, trying to form a reasonable explanation. Maybe Lily had used her phone when she set it up, I told myself. Maybe that's all this is. Yes, that made sense. It had to. But if that were true, why hadn't she mentioned it? And why did it feel like something she didn't want me to notice? Before I could think any further, there was a knock at the door, sharp, unexpected. I flinched slightly, the sound cutting through the silence like a crack in glass. When I opened the door, Derek stood there with 2 cups of coffee in his hands and that same easy smile on his face. "Hey, Janice," he said warmly. "Thought you could use a pick-me-up." I hesitated for just a second too long. He noticed. "You okay?" he asked, stepping inside without waiting for a full invitation. "Lily said you were a little stressed about some bank notifications." My stomach tightened. Of course she told him. I went to the bank, I said, closing the door behind him. His expression flickered just briefly, but I saw it. A crack. "Already," he said lightly. "That was quick. I wanted to be sure everything was all right." Of course he nodded, handing me one of the cups. "Better safe than sorry, right?" I took the coffee, but I didn't drink it. Instead, I watched him. He moved through my kitchen as if he had been there 100 times, setting his own cup down, glancing casually at the table, at the tablet. It was subtle, so subtle that I might have missed it a week ago. But now I saw it clearly. His attention wasn't on me, it was on the device. "They say anything interesting?" he asked, his tone casual. "They recommended freezing some of my accounts," I replied. That got his full attention. "Freezing," he repeated. "That seems extreme." "It's temporary." "Still," he said, shaking his head slightly, "banks love to overreact. It's probably just a glitch." A glitch. The same word Lily had used. I set the coffee down untouched. "Derek," I said slowly, "how familiar are you with this tablet?" His smile didn't falter, but something behind it shifted. "Not very," he said. "Lily handled all that. I just watched." Just watched. I studied his face. "Did you ever connect your phone to it?" I asked. The question landed harder than I expected. For a brief second, his expression tightened. Then it smoothed out again. "No," he said. "Why would I do that?" I held his gaze. "I found another device linked to it," I said. There it was again. That flicker. So quick. But this time I was looking for it. "I'm sure that's just Lily's," he said, his tone a little sharper now. She probably used her phone when setting things up. Maybe, I said quietly. We stood there in silence for a moment. Then the front door opened. Lily stepped in. "Mom," she called out. "Derek said you went to the bank." She stopped when she saw us standing in the kitchen. The air shifted instantly. "What's going on?" she asked, her eyes moving between us. "I was just telling your mom not to worry," Derek said quickly. "Everything's probably fine." Lily looked at me. "You didn't need to go to the bank," she said, her voice calm, but underneath it I heard something else. Frustration. "I wanted to understand what was happening," I replied. "And what did they say?" she asked. "They said the requests came from a trusted device." Her face went still, just for a second. Then she smiled. "Exactly," she said. "That's what I've been telling you." It's just the tablet syncing." "No," I said softly. "That's not what they meant." The smile faltered. "They meant someone with authorized access is making those requests," I continued. The room went quiet. Lily's expression hardened, not dramatically, but enough. "Mom," she said, her voice lower now, more controlled. "You're misunderstanding this." "Am I?" I asked. "Yes," she said firmly. "You don't know how these systems work." I felt something inside me shift. Not anger, not yet. Something colder. "I know enough to ask questions," I said. Her jaw tightened. "Why are you doing this?" she asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard. "Doing what acting like this?" she said. "Like I would do something to you." There it was. The line she wanted me to stay behind. The boundary I wasn't supposed to cross. "I didn't say that," I replied carefully. "You're implying it," she shot back. Derek stepped in, raising his hand slightly. "Hey," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Let's not turn this into something it's not. Janice is just stressed." "I'm not stressed," I said quietly. They both looked at me. "I'm paying attention," I added. That was the moment everything changed. Lily's eyes darkened, not with sadness, not with hurt, with something else, something sharper. "Mom," she said slowly, "you've always had a tendency to overthink things." I stared at her. "I trusted you," I said. "You still can," she replied quickly. "Nothing has changed." But everything had, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure if the person standing in front of me was someone I truly knew. And for the first time, I didn't step back. I didn't apologize. I didn't let the moment pass. Instead, I held my ground. And somewhere deep inside me, a quiet voice whispered something I could no longer ignore. This isn't just confusion anymore. This is something else. Something intentional. Something I was only just beginning to understand. After Lily and Derek left that afternoon, the silence in my house felt different. It wasn't the familiar quiet I had grown used to over the years, the kind that settled gently around me like an old blanket. This silence felt sharper, more alert, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for me to understand something I had been avoiding. I didn't turn on the television. I didn't make dinner. I just sat at the kitchen table, the tablet in front of me, my hands folded tightly together as if keeping them still might somehow steady everything else. For the first time, I allowed myself to think the thought I had been pushing away. What if this isn't a mistake? The words didn't come easily. They pressed against something deep inside me, something protective, something maternal that had spent decades believing in Lily, defending her, trusting her. But now that the thought had surfaced, I couldn't force it back down. Instead, I reached for my phone. I didn't call Lily. I called Evelyn. She answered on the first ring. "Janice," she said. "Everything all right?" I hesitated for just a second. "No." I admitted, "I don't think it is." There was no judgment in her silence, just patience. "Do you want me to come over?" she asked. "Yes," I said. She arrived within 15 minutes, still wearing her gardening gloves, her gray hair pulled back loosely as if she had left in a hurry. That alone told me something. Evelyn didn't rush for no reason. She stepped inside, took one look at my face, and set her purse down without a word. "Tell me," she said. So I did. I told her everything from the birthday dinner to the tablet, the alerts, the bank visit, the conversation with Lily and Derek. I told her about the second device, about the way Derek had looked at the tablet, about Lily's reaction when I mentioned the bank. I didn't interrupt myself. I didn't soften the details. For once I said everything exactly as it was. When I finished, Evelyn didn't speak right away. She walked over to the table, picked up the tablet, and held it in her hands like she was weighing it. Then she looked at me. "You already know," she said quietly. My throat tightened. "I don't want to," I whispered. "I know," she replied. That was the hardest part. Not the evidence, not the fear, but the knowing. Evelyn set the tablet back down. "What are you going to do?" she asked. I didn't answer immediately, because the truth was I didn't know. A part of me wanted to call Lily again, to give her another chance to explain, to find some version of events that would make all of this feel like a misunderstanding. But another part of me, the part that had been growing louder since the bank, knew that explanations wouldn't change what was already happening. "I need proof," I said finally. Evelyn nodded slowly. "Then let's get it." The next morning, I did something I never thought I would do. I took the tablet to a small electronics repair shop across town. It wasn't a big chain store, just a quiet little place with a faded sign and a bell on the door that chimed when I stepped inside. A young man looked up from behind the counter. "Can I help you?" he asked. "I think someone might be accessing my device," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He gestured for me to bring it over. "Let's take a look." I handed him the tablet and watched as he began navigating through the settings with practiced ease. At first, everything looked ordinary. Then he paused. "Okay," he said slowly. That single word made my stomach drop. What I asked. He turned the screen slightly so I could see. "There's a remote access application installed here," he explained. "It's hidden behind another program, something that looks like a normal file-sharing app." I stared at the screen, trying to understand what I was looking at. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means someone can see what you're doing on this device," he said, "in real time. They can also interact with it, enter information, approve things, move files." The room felt suddenly too small. "They don't need to physically have the tablet," he continued. "As long as this is active, they can access it from somewhere else." I felt my fingers grip the edge of the counter. "Can you tell who installed it?" I asked. He shook his head. "Not exactly, but it was set up manually. This isn't something that just appears on its own. Manually. Deliberately." I closed my eyes for a moment. "Can you remove it?" I asked. "I can," he said. "But if you're dealing with something serious like fraud, you might want to leave it for now and involve your bank or the authorities. Removing it could erase evidence." Evidence! The words settled heavily between us. "Thank you," I said quietly. I paid for the inspection and walked out of the shop with the tablet still in my hands. The sun was bright outside. Too bright. Everything looked normal. Cars passing, people walking, life moving forward like nothing had changed. But inside me, something had. Because now, I didn't have doubts anymore. I had confirmation. I sat in my car for a long time before turning the engine on. My mind replayed every moment from the past week. Lily sitting beside me at the table setting everything up, her voice telling me not to worry. Derek watching the screen, the alerts, the pressure, the explanations that didn't quite fit, and beneath all of it, one truth I could no longer avoid. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't confusion. This was planned. A wave of nausea rose in my chest, and I pressed my hand against the steering wheel to steady myself. How long, I wondered? How long had they been doing this, and how far were they willing to go? As if answering that question, my phone buzzed in the seat beside me, a notification from my bank. I opened it with shaking hands. Another attempt. This time the details were clearer. a transfer request larger than before, and the destination account. I didn't recognize the company name, but something about it felt familiar. I stared at it, my mind searching for a connection. Then it clicked. Derek. I had heard him mention something similar at dinner, a business venture, a company he was getting off the ground. My breath caught. This wasn't random. It wasn't even distant anymore. It was right here, right in front of me. I locked the tablet and set it down slowly. For a moment, I just sat there staring straight ahead. Then I reached for my phone again. Not to call Lily. Not this time. I dialed the bank, and as the line began to ring, I felt something shift inside me. Something firm. Something clear. For the first time since my birthday, I wasn't just reacting. I was deciding. Whatever this was, however deep it went, I was no longer going to pretend I didn't see it. By the time I pulled back into my driveway, the decision I had made in the car was still sitting firmly in my chest, but it didn't feel steady. It felt heavy, like something I wasn't sure I was strong enough to carry. I had spoken to the bank on the way home. Monica had answered again, her voice calm and measured, but this time there had been something more beneath it, urgency. "Janice," she said after I explained what the technician found, "this is no longer just suspicious activity. This is targeted access. You need to be very careful." Careful! The word echoed in my mind as I stepped out of the car. Careful with what I said. Careful with what I did. Careful with who I trusted. And that last part, that was the one that hurt the most. Because I knew who this was about. I just wasn't ready to say it out loud. Inside the house, everything looked exactly as I had left it. The same quiet rooms, the same yellow roses now just beginning to droop at the edges. I set the tablet down on the table again, but this time I didn't sit. I paced, back and forth across the kitchen, because there was one thing I needed before I could take the next step. I needed to hear it from her. Not a guess. Not an assumption. The truth. I picked up my phone and stared at Lily's name for a long moment before pressing call. She answered almost immediately. "Mom," she said. "I was just about to call you." Of course she was. "I need you to come over," I said. There was no softness in my voice this time. No hesitation. A pause. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "No," I said. "It's not." Another pause. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, she replied. She didn't ask anything else. She already knew. I could feel it. Those 20 minutes felt longer than the entire morning. I didn't sit down. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't distract myself. I stood in the kitchen waiting. When the door finally opened, Lily walked in alone. No Derek. That somehow made everything feel more real. "Mom," she said carefully, closing the door behind her. "What's going on?" I didn't answer right away. I simply picked up the tablet and held it out to her. "I had it checked," I said. Her eyes flicked to the device, then back to me, and she asked, "There's remote access software installed on it," I said. "Hidden." The silence that followed was immediate. Heavy. Lily didn't react the way an innocent person would. She didn't look confused. She didn't ask questions. She just stood there, still, processing. How long, I asked quietly. Her jaw tightened. "Mom." "How long?" "Lily." I repeated, my voice firmer this time. She exhaled slowly, running a hand through her hair. "It's not what you think," she said. The sentence hit me harder than anything else she could have said, because I had heard it before, and it was never true. "Then tell me what it is," I said. She hesitated, And in that hesitation, I saw it. Not fear, not guilt, calculation. "We were just trying to help you," she said finally. The words felt like something sharp sliding under my skin. "Help me," I repeated. "You don't understand how vulnerable you are, Mom." She continued, her tone shifting, more controlled now, more confident. "People your age get scammed all the time. We were just monitoring things, making sure nothing happened." I stared at her. "That's why there were transfer attempts?" I asked. Her eyes flickered. That was, she stopped, then corrected herself. "That wasn't supposed to happen like that." My chest tightened, like what I pressed. She looked away for a moment. And that was all the confirmation I needed. "You were moving my money," I said. It wasn't a question. She didn't deny it. Instead, she let out a frustrated breath. "Mom, it wasn't like we were stealing from you," she said. "We were just using it. Temporarily. Using it." The room seemed to tilt slightly. "That's called stealing Lily." "No, it's not," she shot back, her voice rising. "You have more than enough. You're sitting on savings you barely touch while Derek and I are trying to build something. We were going to put it back." I felt something inside me break. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. "You didn't ask," I said. "You would have said no." She replied immediately, "Then you knew it was wrong." Her expression hardened. "No," she said. "I knew you wouldn't understand." There it was. Not regret, not shame, justification. She stepped closer, her voice softening again, trying to shift the tone. "Mom, listen to me," she said. "We're under a lot of pressure right now. Derek has investors waiting. This was just supposed to be a short-term solution. No one was going to get hurt. No one," I repeated. "What do you think would have happened if those transfers went through?" I asked. "If the bank hadn't stopped them, they wouldn't have noticed," she said quickly. "Not right away. And by the time they did, we would have fixed everything." I shook my head slowly. "You don't hear yourself," I said. "You're overreacting," she snapped. "No," I said quietly. "I'm finally reacting the way I should have from the beginning." The words hung in the air between us. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Lily's expression shifted again. This time there was no softness, no attempt to persuade, just something colder. "If you go to the police," she said, her voice low, "you're not just hurting me. You're destroying this family." The threat was clear, not loud, not dramatic, but unmistakable. I looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time, I saw someone I didn't recognize. Not the little girl who used to hold my hand, not the teenager who slammed doors and rolled her eyes, but a woman who had made a choice and was standing by it. "You already did that," I said. Her eyes flashed. "That's not fair," she shot back. "No," I said softly. "What you did wasn't fair." The silence that followed was heavier than anything we had said. Finally, she stepped back. "Think about what you're doing," she said. "Before you make a mistake, you can't take back." Then she turned and walked toward the door. She didn't slam it. She didn't look back. And just like that, she was gone. I stood there in the kitchen, the tablet still in my hands, my heart pounding in a way that felt both overwhelming and strangely clear. Because now there was no confusion left, no doubt, no illusion to hide behind. I knew what had happened. I knew who had done it. And for the first time, I understood something I had been avoiding since the moment I opened that birthday gift. This wasn't just about money. It was about trust. And my daughter hadn't just crossed a line. She had erased it completely. After Lily walked out, the house didn't feel empty. It felt exposed, as if something invisible had been pulled back, leaving everything raw and unprotected. I stood there for a long time, staring at the closed door, half expecting her to come back, to turn the handle, step inside, and say something different, something that would make this all less final. But the handle didn't move. The silence stretched, and slowly the truth settled in. She wasn't coming back not to fix this. I set the tablet down carefully, as if it were something fragile, something that might break if I handled it too roughly. But the truth was, it wasn't the device I was afraid of breaking anymore. It was everything else. My trust, my memories, my understanding of who my daughter was. I sank into the chair at the kitchen table, my hands resting flat against the surface, grounding myself in something solid. Then I reached for my phone. This time I didn't hesitate. I called the bank. Monica answered again, her voice steady as ever. Janice. I spoke to her, I said. There was a brief pause, and she asked gently. She admitted it. I said, not everything, but enough. Another pause, this one heavier. I'm very sorry, Monica said quietly. I closed my eyes for a moment. I need to know what to do next. You're already doing it, she replied. The next step is to document everything, and we need to involve law enforcement. The words landed with a weight I had been expecting but still wasn't ready to carry. Law enforcement. Police. Those weren't words you ever imagine attaching to your own child. I don't want to destroy her life, I said, my voice barely holding together. I understand, Monica said. But Janice, this isn't just a misunderstanding. There's evidence of attempted financial exploitation. And from what you've described, it may go further than that. Further. The word echoed in my mind. How, I asked? We've flagged multiple access attempts, she explained. And there's something else you should be aware of. My fingers tightened around the phone. What? There's a loan inquiry under your name, she said. It hasn't been approved, but it was started. I felt the air leave my lungs. Alone, I repeated. Yes, she said. A significant one. My mind struggled to catch up. They weren't just trying to move my money, I whispered. No, Monica said gently. It appears they were preparing to create new debt in your name. I pressed my hand against my chest, steadying myself. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't desperation. This was something else entirely. I'll cooperate, I said finally. There was no hesitation left in my voice. All right, Monica replied. I'm going to connect you with a detective who handles these cases. Her name is Angela Brooks. She's very experienced with situations involving family. Family. The word felt heavier than ever. Later that afternoon, I found myself sitting in my living room across from Detective Angela Brooks. She didn't look intimidating. She didn't raise her voice or carry herself with authority the way I had imagined detectives would. Instead, she was calm, observant, patient, which somehow made everything feel more serious. Mrs. Crawford, she said, I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to answer as honestly and clearly as you can. This is about building a timeline. I nodded, so we began. I told her everything from the birthday dinner to the tablet, the alerts, the confrontation with Lily. She listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes, occasionally asking for clarification. When I finished, she leaned back slightly, studying me. You did the right thing by coming forward, she said. It didn't feel like the right thing. It felt like the only thing left. How common is this? I asked quietly. She didn't sugarcoat it. More common than people think, she said. Especially when technology is involved, and especially when the person being targeted trusts the one doing it. I looked down at my hands. I trusted her completely, I said. I know, she replied gently. There was no judgment in her voice, just understanding. What happens now? I asked. We move carefully, she said. We don't confront her again. We don't tip her off that we're building a case. If she thinks she still has access or that she can still persuade you, she may try again. I nodded slowly. And if she does, I asked. That gives us more evidence, Angela said. Clear, undeniable evidence. The word evidence came up again, and each time it felt less like a legal term and more like something personal. Proof of what she had done, of who she had chosen to be. Can you keep using the tablet? She asked. I hesitated. Yes, I said. If I have to. You won't be alone, she assured me. We'll monitor activity. Your bank will flag anything unusual. All you have to do is act normal. Normal? I almost laughed at that. Nothing about this felt normal. But I understood what she meant. That evening I sat at the kitchen table again, the tablet in front of me. It looked the same as it had the night Lily gave it to me. Clean, simple, innocent. But now I knew better. Now I saw it for what it was. A door. One that had been opened from the inside. I picked it up slowly and turned it on. The screen lit up just as it always had. Nothing looked different. But everything felt different. A message appeared a few minutes later. From Lily. Hey, Mom. I've been thinking. I'm sorry if I upset you earlier. I didn't mean to. Let's talk. I stared at the screen. The words were soft. Careful. Calculated. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I thought about what Detective Brooks had said. If she thinks she still has access, she may try again. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then I typed back. It's okay. I understand things are stressful. We can talk. I pressed send, and just like that, I stepped into something I never imagined I would have to do. I pretended. Pretended everything was fine. Pretended I still trusted her. Pretended I didn't know what I now knew. Because somewhere between the birthday dinner and this moment, I had stopped being just a mother trying to understand her daughter and become something else entirely, someone who was waiting, watching, and preparing to see just how far her daughter was willing to go. Pretending was harder than I expected. Not because I didn't understand what I needed to do, but because every word I typed back to Lily felt like I was stepping further away from the version of myself I had always been. The version that believed her. The version that forgave first and questioned later. Now every message had to be measured. Controlled. Careful. That night I kept the tablet on the kitchen table just as I had before. I didn't hide it. I didn't shut it off. I used it exactly the way I normally would. At least that's what it looked like. Inside, everything was different. Every tap felt observed. Every pause felt like it might mean something. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I couldn't stop wondering, are they watching me right now? The thought should have terrified me, but instead it made me sharper, more aware. Around 8:30 that evening, another message came through. This time it wasn't from Lily. It was a notification from the bank app. New verification request pending. My heartbeat slowed, not sped up. That surprised me. I tapped the notification and opened the app. There it was. Another attempt. More precise than the last. A request tied to what looked like tax verification, something more official, more structured. The kind of step you take before moving larger amounts of money or finalizing something bigger. I stared at the screen, remembering what Detective Brooks had said. They may be preparing something larger. I didn't approve it. I didn't decline it. I just left it there, waiting. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Lily. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. Hey, Mom, she said, her voice soft, almost careful. Did you see a notification just now? There it was. The same pattern. Yes, I said calmly. I saw it. Good, she replied quickly. That's actually important. It's part of fixing the earlier issue. Fixing. Not creating. Fixing. I leaned back in my chair, forcing myself to keep my tone even. What do I need to do? I asked. Just approve it, she said. It'll clear everything up. I let a small pause settle between us. I thought you said I shouldn't worry about those, I said gently. I know, but this one's different, she replied. This is the system correcting itself. The explanation came too easily, too smoothly, like she had rehearsed it. I'm not very comfortable approving things I don't understand, I said. There was a brief silence. Then her tone shifted slightly. Not harsh, but firmer. Mom, if you don't approve it, it could delay everything she said, and that might cause more problems. More problems. The pressure was subtle, but it was there. I glanced at the tablet again. The request was still waiting. Patient. Persistent. I'll think about it, I said. Another pause. Longer this time. Okay, she said finally. Just don't wait too long. We hung up. I set the phone down slowly, my fingers lingering on it for a moment. Then I reached for the tablet again. I didn't touch the screen. I just looked at it. And for the first time, I didn't see a device. I saw a test. How far would they push? How quickly? How confidently? The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I replayed the conversations in my head. Lily's voice, her explanations. The way she shifted from reassurance to pressure without ever raising her tone. It was controlled, deliberate, and now I could see it clearly. I made coffee, but I barely drank it. Instead, I sat at the table again, waiting. At 9:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Lily. Hey, Mom, I'm going to stop by later. Just want to make sure everything is okay with the tablet. My chest tightened slightly. Of course she was coming. I typed back carefully. That's fine. I'll be home. A few minutes later, another message. Derek might come with me. He wants to help. Help? The word didn't feel the same anymore. Okay, I replied. I set the phone down and exhaled slowly. This was it. The moment Detective Brooks had been preparing me for. If she thinks she still has access, she'll try again. I spent the next few hours doing exactly what I had been doing all week. Nothing unusual, nothing different. I even opened the tablet and scrolled through photos, letting the normalcy of it play out exactly as expected. But inside, I was counting every minute. At 11:03 a.m., a car pulled into the driveway. I didn't need to look out the window to know it was them. A few seconds later, the front door opened. Mom, Lily called out. In the kitchen, I replied. She walked in first. Derek followed close behind. He gave me a small nod, his expression polite, but his eyes moved quickly, scanning the room. Looking. Checking. The tablet was right where it always was. On the table. Lily's gaze landed on it almost immediately. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice light. "Yes," I said. "I've been using it like you showed me." She smiled. Good. That was what she wanted to hear. Derek stepped closer, leaning slightly against the counter. "Did you see the verification request he asked?" "Straight to it. No small talk." "Yes," I said. And he pressed. "I haven't approved it yet," I replied. Lily's smile tightened just a fraction. "That's okay," she said quickly. "We can do it together. Together." I nodded slowly. "All right." I picked up the tablet and turned it toward her. "Show me." She moved closer, her fingers hovering just above the screen. For a moment, everything slowed. The room, the air, the sound of my own breathing. This was the moment. The one they had been working toward. The one I had been waiting for. Lily tapped the screen, opened the app, navigated through it with ease that was far too familiar, too practiced. And then she said something small, something she probably didn't even realize she had said. "That's the account with the higher balance," she muttered. My breath caught. I hadn't told her that. The bank hadn't told her that. That information wasn't visible on the screen she was looking at. Not in that moment. Not in that way. I looked at her. Really looked at her. "How did you know that?" I asked quietly. Her hand froze. Just for a second. Then she laughed lightly. "I mean, it's obvious, Mom," she said quickly. "You've always kept most of your savings in that account." No, that wasn't true. Not anymore. I had moved things around months ago. Something she shouldn't have known. Unless... The realization settled in slowly, but completely. This wasn't just access. This was knowledge. Detailed. Current. Ongoing. And suddenly the room didn't feel like my kitchen anymore. It felt like something else entirely. A place where the truth had been hiding in plain sight and was finally stepping into the light. For a moment, no one moved. Lily's hand hovered above the tablet, her fingers still poised as if she could simply continue what she had been doing, and the moment would pass. Derek straightened slightly against the counter, his eyes flicking between us, calculating. But I didn't look at him. I kept my eyes on Lily. How did you know that I repeated my voice, calm, too calm, even to my own ears? She let out a small, dismissive laugh. "Mom, come on," she said, pulling her hand back slightly. "You're reading too much into this." "No," I said softly. "I'm asking a simple question." The air between us tightened. Lily crossed her arms, her posture shifting from helpful daughter to something more guarded. "I just assumed she said, 'It's not a big deal.'" I tilted my head slightly. "It is a big deal," I replied, "because I didn't tell you I moved money out of that account months ago." That was when the silence changed. Not empty, not uncertain. Heavy. Derek pushed himself off the counter. "Hey," he said, his voice calm but edged. "This doesn't need to turn into an interrogation." I didn't even glance at him. "This isn't about you," I said. But it was. We all knew it. Lily's expression hardened. "Mom," she said slowly, "what exactly are you trying to imply?" I set the tablet down on the table between us. "I'm not implying anything I said. I'm asking you to explain how you know details about my accounts that you shouldn't have access to." Her eyes flashed. "I set everything up for you," she snapped. "Of course I know how your accounts are structured." "No," I said firmly. "You knew the current balance. The updated one. That information wasn't on the screen you were looking at. Derek shifted again, his jaw tightening. You're making assumptions, he said. And you're avoiding answers, I replied without hesitation. That seemed to irritate him. Look, he said, his tone sharpening. We're just trying to help here. You're the one making this complicated. Help. That word again. It sounded different now. Hollow. I looked back at Lily. Do you want to try again? I asked quietly. She stared at me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she exhaled sharply, turning away for a second before looking back at me with something new in her eyes. Not softness, not confusion, something colder. Fine, she said. Derek glanced at her. Lily. No. She cut him off. She wants answers. Let's give her answers. My chest tightened, but I didn't move. I had been waiting for this. What do you want to know? She asked. The truth, I said. She let out a short, almost humorless laugh. You already think you know it. Then say it out loud, I replied. Another pause. Then, we had access, she said flatly. The words landed like something solid hitting the floor. No softness, no hesitation, just fact. For how long, I asked. A few days before your birthday, she said. I blinked. Before, she nodded. We needed to make sure everything was set up properly. Properly. The word made something twist in my chest. You planned this, I said. It wasn't like that, she replied quickly. Then how was it, I asked? She hesitated, and for the first time since she walked in, I saw something flicker across her face. Not guilt, not quite. Something closer to irritation. We were going to use the money temporarily, she said. That's it. You already said that, I replied, but that doesn't explain why you knew details you shouldn't. Her jaw tightened. Because we checked, she said. The room went very still. You checked, I repeated. Yes, she said. We had access. We could see the balances, the activity, everything. Everything. The word echoed in my mind. Every transaction, every account, every detail of my life. How often, I asked. She shrugged. Whenever we needed to. Something inside me went cold. You were watching me, I said. It wasn't like that. She replied again, but her tone lacked conviction this time. It was exactly like that, I said. Derek stepped forward. Okay, this is getting blown out of proportion, he said. We didn't hurt you. Nothing went through. The bank stopped it. I turned to him, then finally meeting his eyes. You tried to take money from me, I said. We were going to put it back, he snapped. That's not the point. Then what is he shot back? The point, I said, my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest, is that you didn't think you needed my permission. He opened his mouth to respond, then stopped, because there was no answer to that. Lily looked between us, her frustration building. You're acting like we betrayed you, she said. I stared at her. You did. No, she said sharply. We used what was already there. You weren't even using it. The words hit harder than anything else she had said, not because of the money, but because of what it meant. You looked at me, I said slowly, and decided I was something you could use. Her expression didn't change, because that was exactly what she had done. We're family, she said. It's not the same as stealing from a stranger. I shook my head. It's worse. That seemed to catch her off guard. How she demanded. Because a stranger doesn't expect me to trust them, I said. You did. The silence that followed was thick, Derek let out a frustrated breath. "This is pointless," he muttered. "We're not going to agree on this." "No," I said quietly. "We're not." Lily stepped closer, her voice lowering. "Mom?" She said, "You need to think carefully about what you do next." There it was. Not a threat, but not a request either. Something in between. "I have," I said. Her eyes searched mine. For what, she asked. "The truth," I replied. "And now that you have it," she pressed. I held her gaze. "Now I decide what to do with it." She didn't like that answer. I could see it in the way her shoulders tensed, in the way her eyes narrowed slightly. "This doesn't have to go any further," she said. "We can fix this. How I asked." "We stop," she said quickly. "No more transfers. No more access. It's done." "And what about everything you already did?" I asked. She hesitated. "It didn't go through," she said. "That's not what I asked." Another pause. Longer this time. "He needed the money," she said, finally nodding toward Derek. "We both did." There it was again. Justification. Not apology, not regret, just reason. And in that moment I understood something I hadn't fully accepted before. She wasn't sorry. She was frustrated. Frustrated that it hadn't worked. Frustrated that I had noticed. Frustrated that I was no longer playing the role she expected me to play. "I think you should leave," I said quietly. Lily blinked. "What?" "You should go," I repeated. Derek didn't argue this time. He stepped back toward the door, already pulling his keys from his pocket. Lily stayed where she was. "You're making a mistake," she said. I didn't respond, because for the first time since this began, I wasn't unsure anymore. I wasn't confused. I wasn't questioning myself. I was certain, and that certainty felt heavier than anything else. But it also felt right. Lily held my gaze for a few seconds longer, then she turned and followed Derek out. The door closed behind them with a quiet click. I stood there in the kitchen, the tablet still on the table, the silence returning, but not the same silence as before. This one wasn't empty. It was full of something else. Clarity, and the understanding that whatever came next was no longer about discovering the truth. It was about facing it. After Lily and Derek left the house, didn't fall into silence the way it used to. It settled into something heavier. Final. I stood in the kitchen for a long time, staring at the spot where Lily had been standing just minutes before. The same place where she used to stand as a teenager, leaning against the counter, asking me what was for dinner. The same place where she once cried over a failed exam, where I held her and told her everything would be all right. And now that same space held a completely different version of her. One I didn't recognize, one I couldn't reach. I let out a slow breath and sat down, my body suddenly feeling older than it had that morning. The tablet was still on the table, untouched since they left. I didn't pick it up. I didn't need to anymore. I already knew what was inside it. What mattered now wasn't the device. It was what came next. My phone rang just after noon. Ryan. I stared at his name for a moment before answering. "Hey, Mom," he said, his voice warm but cautious. "You okay?" "No." But I didn't say that. "I talked to Lily," I said instead. There was a pause, and he asked. She admitted it. I replied. The silence on his end stretched longer this time, then admitted what exactly he asked, his voice tightening. "That she and Derek had access to my accounts," I said. "That they were trying to move money." Another pause. He exhaled sharply. Are you serious? Yes. What the hell? He muttered under his breath. Mom, why didn't you tell me sooner? I wasn't sure, I said, quietly. I didn't want to believe it. Well, it's real now, he said. So what are you going to do? The question hung between us. I looked down at my hands resting on the table. I'm working with the bank, I said, and a detective. Ryan didn't respond immediately. Then, good, he said. I blinked. Good, I repeated. Yes, he said firmly, because this isn't something you handle on your own. She's your sister, I said. And you're my mother, he replied without hesitation. The simplicity of that answer hit me harder than I expected. I should have been there, he added, his voice quieter now. I should have seen this coming. You couldn't have known, I said. Maybe not, he said. But I'm coming home. Ryan, you don't have to. I do, he interrupted. I'll book the next flight. I'll be there tonight. I closed my eyes for a moment. Part of me wanted to tell him not to come, to keep things from escalating, to protect what little remained of our family from further fracture. But another part of me, the part that had been growing stronger over the past few days, knew I didn't have to do this alone. Okay, I said softly. I'll call you when I land, he replied. We hung up, and for the first time that day, I felt something shift inside me. Not relief, not exactly, but support. A reminder that not everything had been broken, that not everyone I loved had turned into someone I didn't recognize. The rest of the afternoon passed slowly, too slowly. I tried to keep myself occupied straightening the kitchen, watering the plants, folding laundry that didn't need folding, but my mind kept drifting back. To Lily, to the conversation, to the way she had stood there calm and unapologetic, explaining what she had done as if it were something reasonable, as if it made sense. I thought about her as a child, the way she used to line up her toys in perfect rows, the way she hated losing even in games that didn't matter, the way she rarely asked for help even when she needed it. Had I missed something back then? Had there been signs, or had life simply shaped her into someone I no longer understood? By the time evening came, I was exhausted, not physically, emotionally, the kind of exhaustion that settles deep where rest doesn't quite reach. I was sitting in the living room when my phone rang again. This time it wasn't Ryan, it was Detective Brooks. Mrs. Crawford, she said, her tone calm but purposeful. I wanted to follow up after your conversation earlier. She admitted it, I said, before she could ask. I thought she might, Angela replied. Did she provide any additional details? Yes, I said. They've had access for days. They've been monitoring everything. Angela was quiet for a moment. That aligns with what we're seeing, she said, and there's something else I need to discuss with you. My stomach tightened. What is it? We've traced the destination of the attempted transfers, she said. The account is linked to a shell company. I closed my eyes briefly. Derek, I said. Yes, she confirmed. But it goes deeper than that. Deeper. The word again. There are multiple financial activities connected to that account, she continued. Not just yours. I opened my eyes. What do you mean? We believe there may be other individuals involved, she said carefully. Possibly other victims. The room felt suddenly colder. This wasn't just about me, I said. No, Angela replied. It doesn't appear to be. I leaned back slowly, trying to process what she was saying. So this is bigger than I thought. Yes, she said, which is why it's important that we proceed carefully. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. What happens next? I asked. We're building the case, she said. We have enough to move forward, but we want to ensure everything is documented thoroughly. That includes any further contact she makes with you. She's already trying, I said. Messages, calls, pressure to approve things. That's good, Angela said. I frowned slightly. It doesn't feel good. I understand, she replied, but it helps establish intent. The more clearly we can show what she's doing, the stronger the case becomes. Intent. That word mattered, because this wasn't an accident. It wasn't confusion. It was a choice, a deliberate one. I'll keep you informed, she said. And if she contacts you again, do not confront her. Just document it. I understand. We ended the call and I sat there for a long moment, the quiet of the house pressing in around me again. But this time, it didn't feel the same, because now I knew something I hadn't known before. This wasn't just about my daughter making a terrible decision. This was part of something larger, something structured, something planned, and somewhere in the middle of it was the girl I had raised, the girl I had trusted, the girl I now had to stand against. Later that night, just as the sky darkened outside, headlights swept across the front window. Ryan. I stood up slowly as his car pulled into the driveway. A few seconds later, the door opened and he stepped inside, his expression tight with concern. Mom, he said. I didn't say anything. I just walked toward him, and for the first time since this began, I let myself lean into someone else's strength. Because whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't facing it alone. That night with Ryan finally asleep in the guest room, I found myself standing alone in the hallway, unable to settle. The house was quiet again, but not the same quiet as before. This one carried weight. Memory. Grief. I walked slowly toward the kitchen, my hand brushing lightly against the wall, as if I needed something steady to guide me. The yellow roses were still there, but now their petals had begun to curl inward, edges softening, color fading just slightly. I stared at them for a long time. 11 days ago, they had been perfect, fresh, bright, full of life. Just like the moment I believed my daughter was coming back to me. I turned away and sat at the table, the tablet in front of me untouched. For once, I didn't pick it up. Instead, I let myself feel everything I had been holding back. The exhaustion, the confusion, the quiet, aching grief that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with loss. Not the loss of my husband. I had already lived through that. This was different. This was the loss of the version of Lily I thought still existed. The one who needed me. The one who trusted me. The one who would never look at me and see opportunity. I pressed my hands together, steadying myself. And then my phone rang. The sound cut through the silence sharply. I looked down. Lily. For a moment, I considered not answering. But then I remembered what Detective Brooks had said. If she reaches out, let her. I took a slow breath and answered. Hello, Mom. Her voice was softer than I had heard it in days. Tired. Fragile. I've been thinking, she said. I didn't respond. I let her speak. I shouldn't have come at you like that earlier, she continued. I was upset. Things got out of control. Out of control. The phrase felt convenient. It didn't feel out of control, I said quietly. It felt very deliberate. There was a pause. Then a small sigh. I know, she admitted. And I'm sorry. The word hung in the air between us. Sorry. It should have meant something. It should have softened something inside me, but it didn't. Not yet. "What are you sorry for?" I asked. Another pause. Longer this time. "For how I handled things," she said. "Not for what she did, for how she handled it." I noticed the difference. "I want to fix this," she added quickly. "I don't want things to end like this between us." My chest tightened. Neither did I. But wanting something didn't make it possible. How I asked. "I'll stop," she said. "No more access. No more requests. It's over." It sounded clean, simple, almost convincing. But something in me had changed. "You already said that," I replied. "I mean it," this time she insisted. I closed my eyes briefly. "Lily," I said softly, "you meant it the last time too." Silence. Then, "This time is different," she said. "Why?" "Because I got caught." The words didn't come out of her mouth, but I heard them anyway. "Because I don't want to lose you," she said instead. That landed deeper. Not because it erased what she had done, but because it reminded me of what was still there. Something real, something human, something complicated. "I don't want to lose you either," I said. My voice cracked slightly. I didn't try to hide it. "Then let me fix it," she said quickly. "Please." I looked down at the table, at the faint scratches in the wood that had been there for years, at the place where she used to sit and do her homework, at the memories that refused to disappear no matter what had happened. "Come over tomorrow," I said. There was a small pause on the other end. "Really?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "If you want to fix this, we'll talk." Her breath caught slightly. "Okay," she said. "Okay, I'll come in the morning." We ended the call shortly after. I set the phone down slowly, my hand lingering on it for a moment. For a brief second, just a second, I allowed myself to feel something close to hope. Maybe this could still be repaired. Maybe this didn't have to end the way it felt like it was going to. But then I remembered Detective Brooks' words. If she thinks she still has access, she may try again. Hope faded into something more cautious, more grounded. I stood up and walked to the sink, staring out the window into the darkness. Tomorrow. That was the word that echoed in my mind. Tomorrow she would come back. Tomorrow she would say the things she hadn't said yet. Tomorrow I would have to sit across from her and listen, knowing everything I now knew. I didn't know what that conversation would look like. I didn't know what she would say. I didn't know if any of it would be enough. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This wasn't just about forgiveness anymore. It was about truth and consequences. Later that night, I walked slowly through the house, turning off lights one by one. The living room, the hallway, the kitchen. When I reached the front door, I paused. My hand rested on the lock for a moment before I turned it. The soft click echoed in the quiet space. It felt symbolic somehow, like closing something, or preparing to open something else. I wasn't sure which. When I finally made my way to bed, sleep didn't come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lily as a child, laughing, running, calling for me from another room. And then I saw her standing in my kitchen earlier that day, calm, certain, unapologetic. The contrast was too sharp, too painful. Sometime in the early hours of the morning, I finally drifted into a restless sleep. And when I woke, the house was already filled with light. Morning had come. The day everything would change again. I sat up slowly, my body heavy but my mind clear. Today wasn't about wondering anymore. It wasn't about guessing. It wasn't about hoping things would somehow fix themselves. Today was about facing what was in front of me. Fully. Honestly. Without looking away, because whatever Lily brought with her when she walked through that door, I would be ready to see it for exactly what it was. Morning came too quickly. The sunlight poured through the kitchen windows in that same soft, ordinary way it always had, but nothing about the day felt ordinary. Ryan was already awake when I stepped into the hallway. I could hear the low murmur of his voice coming from the living room. He was on the phone, pacing slowly, one hand pressed to his forehead. When he saw me, he ended the call quickly.
"Hey,"
he said, his expression tightening as he studied my face. "Did you sleep at all?" "Some," I replied. It wasn't entirely true, but it was enough. "She called me last night," I added. Ryan's jaw set immediately. "What did she say?" "She wants to fix things I said." He let out a sharp breath. "Of course she does." "Ryan," I said gently. "No, Mom." He cut in, shaking his head. "You heard what she admitted. You know what she did. This isn't something you just fix over coffee." "I know," I said, quietly. He paused, watching me. "Then why is she coming over?" he asked. "Because she's still my daughter." The words stayed in my chest. Instead, I said, "Because I need to hear what she has to say." Ryan didn't look convinced, but he didn't argue further. We both knew this wasn't a conversation he could have for me. This was mine. At 10:17 a.m., a car pulled into the driveway. Ryan stiffened slightly beside me. "That's her," he said. I nodded. A moment later, the front door opened. Mom Lily's voice called out softly. In the kitchen, I replied. She stepped inside slowly this time. Carefully. Derek wasn't with her. That alone changed the atmosphere. She looked different. Less polished. Less certain. But I had already learned not to trust appearances. "Hi," she said, stopping just inside the room. Ryan didn't respond. He stood off to the side, arms crossed, his presence solid and unyielding. Lily glanced at him, then back at me. "Can we talk?" she asked.
"We are talking,"
Ryan said before I could answer. "Ryan," I said quietly. He exhaled and stepped back slightly, but he didn't leave. Lily nodded once as if accepting that. Then she walked over to the table and sat down. I remained standing for a moment before slowly taking the seat across from her. The tablet sat between us, unmoved, unchanged. But now it felt like something else entirely. A piece of evidence. "I've been thinking all night," Lily began, her hands clasped tightly together. "About everything I said, about how I handled it." I didn't interrupt. "I know I messed up," she said. "I know I crossed a line. A line. Not the line. A line." Still minimizing. "I noticed I shouldn't have done it that way," she continued. "That way." Again, not what. How. Ryan shifted slightly beside me, but he stayed silent. "I want to fix it," she said again. I leaned forward slightly. "Then tell me the truth," I said. "I am telling you the truth." "No," I replied calmly. "You're telling me part of it." Her expression tightened. "What else do you want to know?" she asked. "Everything I said." She hesitated, and in that hesitation I felt something settle in my chest. She was still choosing, still deciding what to say and what to hold back. "Start with the company," I said, "the account the money was going to." Her eyes flickered. "That's Derek's," she said. I know that, I replied. What I want to know is how many times you've done this. The room went very still. Lily looked down at her hands. Just a few, she said. Ryan let out a short, disbelieving laugh. A few, he repeated. Ryan, I said. No, Mom. She doesn't get to, I said. I'll handle it, I said firmly. He went quiet, but the tension in the room remained. I looked back at Lily. How many, I asked again. She swallowed. 3, she said. The number hung in the air. 3 attempts. 3 decisions. 3 times she chose this. And before me, I asked. Her head snapped up. What? Before me. I repeated. Have you done this to anyone else? Her silence answered before she did. Ryan stepped forward slightly. Lily. I didn't mean to, she started. Have you done this to anyone else? I asked, my voice steady. She looked away. Yes, she said quietly. The word landed like a stone. Who? Ryan demanded. Friends, she said quickly. People who trusted us with things. It wasn't like this. It was exactly like this, Ryan cut in. Ryan, stop, I said. He didn't move, but he stopped speaking. I turned back to Lily. How long? I asked. A few months, she said. Months, not days, not a mistake. A pattern, a system, a choice repeated over and over again. And Derek, I asked. He handles the accounts, she said. The companies, the transfers. And you, I asked. She hesitated. I got access, she said. The room seemed to shrink. You chose the people, I said. She didn't deny it. My chest tightened, but not in the way it had before. This wasn't confusion anymore. This was clarity. You didn't just take advantage of me, I said quietly. You made a habit of it. Her eyes filled with something that looked like frustration. I didn't see it that way, she said. I know, I replied. That was the problem. A sudden knock at the door cut through the moment, sharp, deliberate. All 3 of us froze. Ryan looked at me. Are you expecting anyone? He asked. I shook my head slowly, but I already knew. I stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. 2 police officers stood on the porch. Behind them, Detective Angela Brooks. Mrs. Crawford, she said gently, we need to come in. I stepped aside without a word. They entered quietly, professionally, purposefully. Lily stood up from the table as they walked into the kitchen, her face drained of color. Mom, she said, her voice barely audible. I didn't answer. I couldn't, because this moment, this exact moment, had been set in motion the second she chose to do what she did. Lily Crawford, one of the officers, said. She looked at them, then at me, and in her eyes for the first time I saw it. Not anger, not justification. Fear. Yes, she whispered. We need you to come with us, the officer said. For what? She asked, her voice shaking now. Detective Brooks stepped forward. Attempted financial fraud, identity theft, and elder exploitation, she said calmly. Lily turned to me, her expression breaking. Mom. You called them? She asked. The question cut deeper than anything else, not because of the accusation, but because of the expectation behind it. That I wouldn't. That I couldn't. I held her gaze. You did this, I said softly. Her face crumpled. This isn't fair, she said. I felt something inside me settle. You counted on me loving you enough to let you, I said. The words came out steady, clear. final. And for the first time since all of this began, I didn't feel uncertain. I didn't feel torn. I didn't feel like I was choosing between my daughter and myself, because she had already made that choice. The officers stepped forward, gently, but firmly, and as they placed the handcuffs around her wrists, the sound echoed through the room louder than it should have. Ryan turned away. I didn't. I stood there, watching, because this was the truth. Not the version she tried to explain, not the version I wished was real, but the one that remained when everything else was stripped away. And as they led her toward the door, past the table, past the tablet, past the life she had tried to take control of, I realized something I never thought I would have to accept. Sometimes, the hardest part of loving someone is refusing to protect them from the consequences of who they chose to become. After the door closed behind them, the house fell into a silence so complete it almost rang. I stood where I was, my hands at my sides, my body still as if moving too quickly might undo what had just happened. The space where Lily had been moments before felt hollow, not empty hollow, as if something had been carved out and taken with it. Ryan exhaled behind me a long, unsteady breath. "Jesus," he muttered, running a hand over his face. "I didn't think it would happen like that. Neither did I. Even though I had known this was coming. Even though Detective Brooks had prepared me. Even though I had agreed to cooperate. Nothing prepares you for the moment your child is led out of your home in handcuffs." I walked slowly back into the kitchen. The table looked exactly the same. The tablet sat where it always had. The chairs were slightly out of place from where we had stood. The yellow roses, now fading petals soft and curling, rested quietly on the counter. Everything was unchanged, and yet nothing was the same. Ryan stepped in beside me.
"You okay?"
he asked. I nodded, though the motion felt distant. "I think so," I said. It wasn't entirely true, but it wasn't entirely false either. I was steady, in a way I hadn't expected, not because it didn't hurt, but because the uncertainty was gone. Ryan pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. "I keep thinking she's going to walk back in," he said quietly. I sat across from him. "So do I admitted. We stayed like that for a while, neither of us speaking, just sitting in the quiet, letting the reality of it settle. Eventually, my phone buzzed on the table. A message. From an unknown number. I hesitated before picking it up. Then I opened it. "Mrs. Crawford, this is Angela Brooks. Lily has been processed. I'll update you on next steps soon. Please take care of yourself today." I stared at the message for a moment. Processed. Such a clinical word. So detached from everything that had led to this point. I set the phone down slowly. "What now?" Ryan asked. I looked at him. "I don't know," I said honestly. And that was the truth. Because for the past 11 days, everything had been about discovering what was happening. Now that it had happened, there was nothing left to uncover. Only consequences. The rest of the day passed in a blur of small, quiet actions. Ryan made coffee neither of us drank. I cleaned dishes that were already clean. We moved through the house like we were trying to return it to something familiar, but nothing felt quite the same. In the afternoon, the phone rang again. This time it was my sister Carol. She didn't waste time. I just heard she said, "Is it true?" I closed my eyes briefly. "Yes." A sharp inhale on the other end. "Janice, what happened?" I hesitated because the answer was complicated. Too complicated for a single sentence. She tried to access my accounts, I said. More than once. Carol was quiet for a moment.
And you called the police?
There it was, the question I knew was coming. Yes, I said. Another pause. Longer this time. She's your daughter, Carol said finally. The words landed heavily. I know, I replied. Don't you think this is extreme? She asked carefully. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not defensiveness. Just clarity. No, I said. There was silence. Then, she made a mistake, Carol said. People make mistakes. I looked at the table, at the tablet, at everything that had led here. This wasn't a mistake, I said quietly. It was a decision. Carol didn't respond immediately. You're going to ruin her life, she said finally. The sentence hung in the air. I took a slow breath. No, I said. She made choices that led here. That's not the same thing, Carol insisted. It is, I replied. When those choices hurt other people. Another pause. I just think maybe you should reconsider, she said. I closed my eyes again. Because this part was almost harder than what had already happened. The second guessing, the quiet pressure, the implication that protecting myself somehow meant betraying her. I've already made my decision, I said. And that's final. Yes. The word felt firm, solid. For the first time, I didn't feel the need to explain it further. Carol sighed. Well, I hope you know what you're doing, she said. So do I replied softly. We ended the call shortly after. Ryan looked at me. Let me guess, he said, family. I nodded. They think I overreacted. He shook his head. No, he said. They just don't want to believe it. Neither did I said. That was the truth. No one wants to believe something like this about someone they love. But belief doesn't change reality. Later that evening, Detective Brooks called. We've confirmed additional activity tied to Derek's accounts, she said. There are at least 2 other individuals who may have been affected. I leaned back in my chair. So it wasn't just me. No, she said. But you're the first to come forward. The first? The word carried weight. What happens now? I asked. Lily will likely be offered a plea deal, Angela said. Given the evidence, it may be the best option for her. I swallowed. A plea deal, I repeated. Yes, she said. It depends on how cooperative she is. Cooperative. The word felt strange when applied to my daughter. But then again, everything about this situation felt strange. Will she go to jail? I asked. There was a brief pause. It's possible, Angela said, but there may also be alternative sentencing options depending on the circumstances. I nodded slowly. Thank you, I said. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet again. Ryan had stepped outside for some air. The house was still, and for the first time since that morning, I let myself feel it fully. The weight of what had happened, the absence, the finality, but also something else, something quieter, stronger. A sense that despite everything, I had done what I needed to do. Not what was easy, not what felt good, but what was right. I stood up slowly and walked to the kitchen counter. The roses were nearly wilted now. I reached out and gently touched one of the petals, soft, fragile, fading. Then I picked up the vase and carried it to the sink. One by one, I removed the flowers and set them aside. It felt symbolic, like letting go of something that had already ended. When I finished, I rinsed the vase and placed it back on the counter. Empty, clean, ready for something new. And as I stood there looking at the space where the roses had been, I realized something. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the end of something else, something I had held on to for too long, and now there was space for something different, even if I didn't yet know what that would be. The first few days after Lily's arrest moved in slow, uneven waves. Some hours felt almost normal. Others felt impossibly heavy. Ryan stayed with me longer than he had planned. He worked remotely from my dining table, his laptop open where the tablet used to sit as the center of attention. He didn't hover, didn't ask too many questions, but he was there. And that presence mattered more than anything he could have said. We fell into a quiet rhythm. Morning coffee together. Short conversations that didn't always need to go anywhere. Evenings spent in the same room doing different things but not alone. It helped, more than I expected. But healing doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in fragments. A breath that feels a little easier. A moment that doesn't ache as sharply. A thought that doesn't spiral into something heavier. And slowly, those fragments begin to connect. A week after everything happened, I had my first appointment with a therapist. I almost canceled it. The idea of sitting across from a stranger and explaining what had happened, putting it into words, felt exhausting before I even walked through the door, but I went anyway. Her office was quiet, warm, intentional in a way that made it feel safe without being overwhelming. "Janice," she said gently as I sat down. "What brings you here?" I let out a soft breath. "My daughter was arrested," I said. The words still felt strange in my mouth, still didn't quite belong to my life. But they were real, and saying them out loud didn't break me. That surprised me. We talked for an hour about Lily, about Daniel, about the years in between, about the difference between loving someone and allowing them to hurt you. That part stayed with me, because for so long I had believed those two things were connected. That protecting someone you love sometimes meant protecting them from consequences. But now I was beginning to understand something different. Sometimes the most honest form of love is letting the truth stand where it is, without softening it, without hiding from it, without trying to reshape it into something easier to live with. A few days later, Ryan left. He stood in the doorway, his bag over his shoulder, looking at me like he wasn't quite ready to go. "You sure you'll be okay?" he asked. I smiled softly. "I will be," I said. And this time, it felt true. "Call me if anything changes," he said. "I will." He hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward and hugged me tightly. "None of this is your fault," he said quietly. I closed my eyes briefly. "I know," I replied. That was new. Not just saying it, believing it. After he left, the house was quiet again, but it didn't feel the same as it had before. It didn't feel empty. It felt peaceful. A different kind of quiet. One that didn't press in on me. One that gave me space. A few weeks passed. Life began to settle into something new. Not what it had been, but something stable. Something real. I started volunteering again, this time at a local senior resource center. At first, it was just a way to stay busy, to fill the hours with something useful. But then something unexpected happened. I started talking. Not in a formal way, not as a speaker or an expert. Just sharing. Small conversations at first, with people who reminded me of myself, people who trusted easily, people who didn't think something like this could happen to them. I didn't tell them everything, but I told them enough to make them pause, enough to make them think, enough to help them protect themselves in ways I hadn't known I needed to, and in doing that, something inside me shifted again, not back to who I was before, but forward, into someone stronger, more aware, more grounded in truth than in assumption. One afternoon, I came home to find a letter in my mailbox. No return address, but I knew. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Lily. I stood there for a moment, the envelope in my hand, my heart beating just a little faster than usual. Then I went inside, sat at the kitchen table, and opened it. The paper inside was simple. No decoration. No attempt to make it anything other than what it was. I unfolded it slowly. Mom, I don't know how to start this. I've written and erased this letter more times than I can count. Nothing feels right. Nothing feels enough. But I'm going to try anyway. I'm sorry. Not for getting caught. Not for how things turned out. But for what I did. I know now that I didn't just take something from you. I broke something I can't easily fix. I told myself it wasn't a big deal, that I would put everything back, that you would never even know. But I did know. I knew it was wrong, and I did it anyway. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect things to go back to the way they were. I just needed you to know that I see it now. All of it. I'm working through things here. It's not easy, but I'm trying to understand how I got here and how to be someone different. I don't know if you'll ever want to see me again, but I hope one day you might. Love, Lily. I read it twice, then a third time. Slowly, carefully. Not looking for what I wanted it to say, just taking in what it did. It wasn't perfect. It didn't fix anything. It didn't erase what had happened. But it was honest. In a way I hadn't heard from her before. I set the letter down gently, and for a long moment I just sat there, feeling everything it brought with it. The sadness, the distance, the possibility, not certainty, not resolution, but possibility. I didn't rush to respond. I didn't reach for my phone. I didn't make a decision. Because for the first time since all of this began, I understood that I didn't have to. Healing doesn't follow a schedule. Trust doesn't return on command. And forgiveness isn't something you give because someone asks for it. It's something you arrive at, slowly, honestly, on your own terms. I stood up and walked over to the counter. The vase was still there, empty, clean, waiting. I picked up my keys and stepped outside. A few minutes later, I was at the small flower shop down the street. I took my time choosing. Not yellow roses, something new, something different. When I brought them home, I placed them in the vase and set them on the counter where the old ones had been. They weren't the same, but they were fresh, alive, a quiet beginning. And as I stood there looking at them, I realized something that felt both simple and profound. My life hadn't ended when the truth came out. It had changed. And in that change, there was space for strength, for clarity, for something real, and maybe someday for healing that didn't require me to forget who I had become in order to get there. There is a kind of love many women carry quietly through their lives, a love that gives, forgives, protects, and endures without asking for much in return. It is the kind of love that builds families, holds them together, and often sacrifices itself in the process. But there is a truth we don't always talk about. Love without boundaries can become a form of self-betrayal. What happened to me wasn't just about money. It was about trust, the kind of trust we give without hesitation to the people we believe would never harm us. And when that trust is broken, the pain is deeper than any financial loss, because it forces you to ask a question no mother ever wants to ask. How did I not see this? The answer is simple and difficult at the same time. You didn't see it because you chose to love, and there is no shame in that. But loving someone does not mean allowing them to take from you, manipulate you, or treat your life as something they are entitled to use. Family is not a free pass to cross boundaries. And age is not a weakness. If anything, it is strength, experience, instinct, and that instinct matters. If something feels off, listen to it. If something doesn't make sense, question it. Because protecting yourself is not selfish. It is necessary. And sometimes the most difficult act of love is allowing someone to face the consequences of their choices even when it breaks your heart. I didn't lose my daughter that day. I lost the illusion of who I thought she was. And in doing that, I found something I didn't realize I had been missing. My own voice, my own boundaries, my own strength. If you've ever been in a situation where your trust was tested or broken, I'd truly like to hear your story. Where are you watching from today? And what would you have done if you were in my place? If this story stayed with you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Not just for me, but for every story like this that deserves to be told. You're not alone.